Hello friends, good evening. Welcome to PDF for Exams YouTube channel. We are studying polity and today is day 13. And in this video we will be learning about center and state relations. As we know, we have a federal form of government. What do we mean by federal? There are two types of government. One is unitary and other is federal. So in unitary, all powers are vested at single government, that is at central level. Whereas federal means dual government, or dual government, one at central level and the other at territories or state levels. So in India we have federal form of government, but to run the business or any kind of legislation, administration, execution of policies and everything, that means to run a government smoothly in our country, the relation between both the government, that is at central level or union government, and state level, relation between these two governments are very important. They should be established and understood what are the relation. So before starting politically, that means in form of polity, I would like to give an example to understand better why do we need to know the center and state relation and how does it hamper or how does it function. So if we take example of a joint family, for example, if you being a male child and if you're married or not married, you are staying somewhere outside of your country, you're preparing, for example, you are a UPSC aspirant, you are preparing in Delhi, you are located in Delhi and your house is somewhere in other state. You can take example of Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, Jharkhand, whatever state you want. So let's take example of Uttar Pradesh. If you are from Uttar Pradesh, your family is in Uttar Pradesh. In your family there is grandfather, father, your mother, and your siblings might be there or not there. But generally what happens, the head of your family is grandfather and grandparents if they are alive, or else your father would be the head of your family, or mother. I am not biased away, your father or mother, anyone could be head of your family, and you are being situated outside or located outside studying, preparing or doing job. So in this we can say that this, if we consider your family wherever they are resided to be a union government and you to a federal government, okay. And this is not about controlling anyone else but controlling about your activities and your functions. So at your own level, while staying in Delhi, you do your own function by getting money and all from your parents, and you study. If you study, you get money from your parents and study. Your task is to study, that's it, and do some extra activities to entertain yourself whenever required. Whereas your family's task is to run the entire family as well as to monitor you and see you whether you are working well or not. So as we can see over here, the relation is very well established. That means whatever your parents say, you have to listen, whatever the condition might be. But there may be some exception that sometimes your parents may be also wrong, you are correct according to the generation. So in that way you can deny what your parents say, but you are financially aided by your parents, and sometimes you are doing part-time job, so you also earn your own money. So I hope you are understanding what I'm trying to explain. You'll get to know better when we come to central and state relations exactly, but you just remember this example of a family and a child who's staying outside for preparation or doing job, okay. So moving forward in video, if we learn about the central and state relation, they are headed in three categories. What are those categories? First is legislative relation, the other is administrative, and third is financial relation. So we have studied about them individually. We have seen legislative, union legislative, state legislative. We have also seen union executive. This administration is part of execution, so union executive and state executive. And we have also seen the finance commissioner, how the finance are distributed among the state and countries. And most important factor, this center and state relation has been mentioned in article from article 245 to 293. So these are the articles under which central and state relationships are mentioned, and they are categorized in three heads. We have already seen these heads, that means legislative, administration and financial. So starting individually, we will start with legislative relation. How are the legislative relation with center and state? Before starting, you should know what does this legislative body of state or union or center do. So as we have seen, or we have already studied in previous video, that a legislative body of a parliament, or you can say union legislative or state legislative, their function is to make laws for the public welfare. So whatever the laws are being made or whatever the laws are being amendment, that are done by legislative bodies, whether it may be union legislative or state legislative, okay. So there has to be some relation maintained between this two, state and union. Why this relation has to be maintained? Now as we know, parliament, what is parliament? If you remember, parliament is union government that is sitting at center, and in parliament we had Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. This was the composition of parliament. So what they were responsible for? They were responsible for making laws and amending laws if required for entire country. That is not for a single part. I'm not good at drawing over here, see I can't draw with mouse very well, but this is assuming this to be our India. This parliament had power to make laws or amend laws for entire country, okay, whereas the state, it's very simple and understood, quietly simple and understood, that a parliament who is working or functioning for overall country can make laws for overall country, whereas state has a power to make laws only for its own state, not for the other state or for the country, okay. So this article 245 states that parliament is competent of making laws for whole or any part of territory of India. Legislature of state may make laws only for whole part of state. So it is clear with this article 245. What does this say? And there is second clause of 245, article 245. What does that clause say? So as we have seen that laws are being made for Indian territory as well as state territory, although state is part of India, but special provision or special powers has been given to state legislator to make law for their state, because our country is divided on the base of linguistic and there may be different rules or requirements in different states. That's why these special powers has been vested in state legislator to make laws for themselves, whereas our country makes laws for whole country on the basis of national interest. Okay, and again this legislative powers are being categorized in two heads. The first is territorial jurisdiction. Territorial jurisdiction means the area for which these union legislator or state legislature can make laws, and the other is subject matter jurisdiction. Now what is this subject matter jurisdiction? So before coming into subject matter jurisdiction, let me explain this territorial jurisdiction. So as we have seen that center can make laws for complete country, whereas state legislation can make laws for one state or its area, whereas there is a third provision that Indian government, sorry, the parliament, the union government or the parliament can laws for extraterritorial, that means the territorial which do not lie in India. Even a territory which is out of India, laws can be made for them also by Indian parliament. Wow, how they can make the law. So let us consider an example over here. If in our country somewhere, let's take somewhere anywhere, if here is one company there, that means one industry has been set up and the branch of this industry has also been set up in other country, let's take Britain. So whatever transactions are done in this place and it is connected territorially with India as its branch or main office is over here, so India can make laws for this part also as it is territorially connected to India. That means if any kind of tax, income tax is required, they can impel this company to give tax to Indian government. Okay, so this was about jurisdiction or territorial jurisdiction which we have seen. That means parliament has power to make laws for whole country. Second, it can make laws for extraterritorial states or which is not part of India, whereas state has only power to make laws for the areas lying within that only state. Okay, so this is all about territorial jurisdiction. Next come the subject jurisdiction. Now what is the subject matter? So if you remember in previous video we have discussed many times that there is a schedule 7 in our constitution, and this schedule 7, in this schedule there are lists provided on which the governments can make laws. For example, there are three lists, not example, there are three lists exactly. One is center or union list, other is concurrent list, and the third is state list. Okay, so in these lists subjects matter are given. For example, in this central list or union list, the subject matter could be defense, agriculture, national highways, military, whatever. So these may be the list or the enlisted in list of state government under 7 schedule state subject matter, whereas in concurrence list there are certain subject matter and state has got its own subject matter. All center, state have their own subject matter on which they can make laws, whereas this concurrent law is common. Center can make laws on this also and state can also make laws on few subject matter of concurrent list. Concurrent means common list for center as well as state. So whatever the conditions may be or requirement, according to requirement, the subject matter of state and center changes accordingly, but although they are fixed and they can derive few subject matter from concurrent list also to make laws. I hope till this everything is clear. Now what is the difference? Now one more important point what I would like to tell you over here is, so if we see the hierarchy of this list, center, concurrent, state, I would like it write it union. So this is greater than concurrent, this is later greater than state. So what do we understand by this? So by this we understand that if union or central government makes any law, let's say it makes law number 1, and using concurrent list law number 2 is made, and using state list law number 3 is made. So in these three laws, if 1 and 2 conflicts, there is a conflict between 1 and 2, so this law will prevail, the law at the central level will prevail. And if any law is made, for example law 2 and law 3 are made, and there is a conflict between law 2 and law 3, then law 2 will prevail. Why? Because it is higher in hierarchy. So by this I hope it is clear. What else? Now list 1 and 2, parliament can make laws on list 1 and 2. We have already seen that parliament can make laws on this its own subject matter and as well as concurrent matter list. It is common for all, and even sometime if required, the center can make laws on state subject matter also if they are found to be of national interest. It's not necessary that center can make laws only on its own subject matter list, but it can also make laws on subject matter list if they are found of national interest. For example, if any highway has to be built in that particular state, then center can make law for that particular highway, although laws are not required for making highway, but just an example of any kind of law which is found to be of national interest can be made by center by using the state subject matter. And one more important point over here, now till now we have seen that there has been domination of center over state, but one important point which we are missing is there are certain union territories like Andaman Nicobar, Lakshadweep and Dadar and Nagar Haveli. Regulation made by president have the same force as act of parliament. Now it's not necessary that center will always make laws for states and union territories. So there are union territories, only union territories, for which president can make laws which will be considered greater than laws made by parliament. In case, as we have seen in case of this list, union list, concurrent list and state list, where this union prevails in case of conflict between two. So similarly, over here president law will prevail in case of any conflict, and any parliamentary law has been made, any parliamentary act law has been made. In that case, if president thinks or assumes that there is problem in this law, it can be twisted or tweaked. That means it can be changed as per the requirement. And there is one more important condition, national emergency. So we have already seen there is a condition, national emergency, in which our government does not function as federal government, it functions as unitary government, that all the power of state are given to center. So that is very common. If powers are given to center, then in that case also laws will be governed or made by parliament, although they may doesn't last for lifelong, but for the period of national emergency it can be made by center. And whenever Rajya Sabha passes a resolution, now if Rajya Sabha thinks or Rajya Sabha passes a resolution that a particular law has to be made in that state which is of national interest. Now why will Rajya Sabha will pass any resolution? Because as we know, Rajya Sabha is a representation of state. All the representative of states are there in Rajya Sabha. So if they feel, if their group feels or the majority feels that there is requirement of any change or making any law in that state, they can make that law. Okay. Next is on state request. Now we have seen that there is a presidential rule. In last video we have seen, not last video, on 11th I guess, we have seen about the emergency, national emergency, state emergency, which is also called as presidential emergency and financial emergency. So in case of a state emergency or financial president's rule, when this president's rule occurs, whenever governors given written notice that I am thinking that the state is not functioning properly as per the guidelines of constitution, in that case president can ask for presidential rule in that particular state. Not he can ask for, he will ask for, it's up to him only. He will decide the proclamation of state emergency in that particular state. Now why will this governor ask? We already know and we have already discussed in that governor is constitutional head of a state. Okay, so I hope this is clear. And there is one more important point which we should learn, that is doctrine of pith and substance. Doctrine of pith and substance. And what is this doctrine of pith and substance? So whenever there is a law made between a state, for example a state makes a law, we have seen that whatever laws are made by center and state and conflict is there, so the central law will prevail. Now how will the central law prevail? So for prevailing the central law, this doctrine of pith and substance is used. So if there is any dispute between state and union on making laws on each other subject matter. For example, center makes laws on state subject matter, then the law made by center would be prevailing and exists. So this is all about legislative relation between state and union. So I hope you have understood about this. We're not going in detail about all the articles. I hope I have cleared everything whatever was required in this. And there was a Sarkaria Commission opinion for legislative relations. So till now what we have seen and what we have observed, we have seen that center is dominating state. That means there has been a tilt towards union government. Union government had more power as compared to state power or state legislation. So there was central specific commission, Sarkaria Commission was set up, and it gave its opinion about the relation, that how these relations are and what changes should be done to make the relation more better. So regarding Article 246 and 254, it said that if principle of union supremacy are excluded. What are the principle of union supremacy? That means union has or its law prevail in any case. So from these articles, it is not difficult to imagine it deleterious result. There will be very possibility of our two-tier political system stultified by interference, strife, legal chaos and confusion caused by the host of conflicting. It says that if this supremacy is excluded, if it is there, that means it is good for our country. If this is excluded, there would be chaos and confusion between and confliction between the laws of state and union. Regarding residuary power, what does this commission say? It said power related to taxation should remain to parliament, while the other residuary power should be placed in concurrence list. So now earlier what we had for taxation, we had several tax at central level like central excise duty, and at state level we had VAT, SAT and many kind of taxes were there which were divided among state and territory. So according to this commission, Sarkaria Commission says that taxation should remain to parliament, only the residuary power should be given or should be placed in concurrent list which could be used by either state or union. Next is residuary union list. The commission feels that the proposed redistribution of power should require drastic change. So these are the commission which you can read, which are not very important. So moving to administrative relations. So what is this administration? So we have learned about the executive powers of parliament as well as state, and we have seen who were members of this administrative. So in administration we have seen at union level we had president, prime minister, cabinet of minister and the other minister, whereas at central level we had governor, constitutional head, chief minister, cabinet of minister, council of minister we can say, and other members who were responsible for execution of anything whatever happens in that state, and over here what happens in the entire country. So what are the administrative relations? So in Article 256, it start with Article 256 and last till 263. Under these articles, administrative relation between state and center are mentioned. So this article says that, just a minute, it obligates that all laws made by state should not go against parliament laws. So in administration, how administration is done? It is done by using the laws, rules and regulations which are being mentioned in constitution or which are being passed by parliament or state. So whatever laws are made by state or whatever laws are made by parliament, they should be followed by state, and state should not make any law, or if there is any existing law that will not prevail, that is conflicting with the laws made by center or union. So this is written in Article 256. In Article 200, let's move forward and see. Now, and center can give direction to state in form of execution. That means what kind of execution and how these execution are to be done. These directions can be given by center to state. So in case if there is any national requirement of national interest, center can give direction to state to follow those things and help central government. What are those national importance? So the construction and maintenance of means of communication declared to be national or military importance. We have already understood this. The measures to be taken for protections of railway. Again, the railway is national property, so protection of railways has to be done by state as they passes through several states. The provision of adequate facilities for instructions in mother tongue at primary stage of education to children belonging to linguistic minority group of states. So in education also, center can give guidelines to state to act properly, and constitution prescribes coercive sanction of enforcement of direction through Article 356. So these are all about the administrative relation between center and state. And in this administrative relation, there is one important factor or one important article that is very important, that is Article 261. What is that Article 261? We'll move to that first and then we'll come back to other articles, what other articles are stating. So Article 261 states that full faith and credit. What is this full faith and credit? Full faith and credit means whatever jurisdiction, whatever power of attorney, whatever orders has been given at any state. For example, if you are staying at center Delhi, or if you are staying in UP, and in UP you get a power of attorney for functioning in overall country. So wherever you go, if you go to Maharashtra, if you go to Kerala, if you go to any state, Madhya Pradesh, so that state has to respect that power of attorney or anything that has been, or any legal document that has been issued by government, and it can't deny that it has been given by your state, that we will not accept. No, they have to accept. Full faith and credit should be given to throughout the territory of India of all public act, record and judicial proceeding of union and every state. Okay, either it is given by union or it is given by state, it should be respected and accepted throughout the territory of a country. So this is given under Article 261 and it is very important article. Now coming to previous acts, let's see what does the other acts say. In Article 258 clause 1, what is mentioned, the President with consent of governor of state entrusts either conditionally or unconditionally to that government to issue officer function in relation to any matter of executive power of union extent. This is also very simple. So in case whatever power or laws has to be implemented in state, President can ask consent from governor. Governor is executive head of a state or constitutional head of state. So President always takes consent from governor because governors know well about his state wherever he is governing. Okay, so this is all about administrative relation of center and state. So whatever comes, whatever execution has to be done or are of national interest, and if they are required to seek help from state, so state will have to accept that national interest matter and work on that. And if any implementation of policies, for example, if any policy has been made at central level and they are being to be implemented in several states, so state should cooperate with central government for implementation of any particular policy. From either it can be for money or finance distribution like Jan Dhan Yojana or whatever yojanas that are given by the central government, they has to be implemented in states only, and they will be governed by or helped by the state governments. So this is all which are given in administrative relation. So this Sarkaria Commission also has opinion about the administration relation also. What are its opinion? Let's see. So in a two-tier system of government where the administration of union law is largely secured through the machinery of state, differences are bound to rise in regard to manner of implementation of union laws. Article 256 and 257 are essential to ensure harmonious exercise of executive power of union and state. That means there are certain laws. For example, if any laws has to be executed in state, any laws which are made at central level, where they will be executed? They will be executed in all the states only, but state had their own law. So there is no conflict between these two laws. For smooth running, there should be an proper execution among the state and center. So this is what is said in Sarkaria Commission opinion. You can read all the opinion which are given over here. Now moving to next relation, that is financial relation between center and state. This is also very important, and we have already seen in many videos about the financial relation among the state and center, how it was. So it is mentioned in Article 269 to 293 in Part 12 of the Constitution. So what is finance? We know anything related to money or taxation, or that means collecting and spending of the money. This is what we mean by finance. And if any money is collected from center or state, it has to be divided among center and state. So we know that there are several taxes which are collected in state, there are several taxes which are collected at central level, and these two revenue collection were collected in consolidated fund of state India, and it has its own consolidated fund. So these consolidated fund, these were handled by finance. There was a finance committee we have seen in a previous video which managed this finance. So working on the financial relation between state and this union is like funds which are given from parliament. That means the parliaments which gives the fund from consolidated fund of India to the state is to be allotted to different state. So just a minute. the CFI, Consolidated Fund of India, it consists of all the funds which are collected through revenue in Parliament or at central level. Okay. Now this Parliament has to allot funds from the CFI to different states. So is it necessary that these funds are allotted equally among the states? It's not necessary, because it depends upon the requirement of state. So whether the states required how much money, it depends from state to state. So according to this requirement, these funds from the Consolidated Fund of India is distributed among the states, and that is called statutory fund or statutory grants. Next is discretionary grant. Discretionary grants are given to the states for tribal upliftment. So this also is the discretionary in nature, or we can call special funds. So if any state requires more funds for upliftment of its tribal people or SC or ST people, so it needs special or extra fund for that state for these kind of people to function properly, or upliftment of these people. So this is the financial relation, and as we know, there is a special case, that is financial emergency. So in this case, union can give discretion to state. That means to maintain financial property, center can give orders to state that salaries of people who are working at state government can be reduced. Even salaries of judges could also be reduced in case of financial emergency. So this is all about the financial relation, how financial relation works between state and country. When details are mentioned over here, you can read. Although I have told the crux of the relation between state and center, there is one more important term which we need to learn over here, that is GST. So you have already learned and read much about the GST. Earlier we had several kind of tax in our country. That means at central level we had central excise duty, duties of excise, additional duty, and at state level we had state VAT, central tax. So there was lots of confusion and cascading of these taxes. That means people have to give or pay many kind of taxes, and there was issues in return of taxes. So there comes a new kind of tax as a GST, that means goods and services tax, which is common to country. The tax rates are common everywhere throughout the country. For example, our tax rate for electronics is 18%, so it would be common for entire country and state. And how does this GST function? So this GST function by rule of collection. And now how does this GST work? So let's take an example. There is a seller and there is a purchaser. So if he sells any product to this person, he will buy that product and pay GST. Okay, GST of 18%, let's say he has paid, this person has paid GST. Now if this person wants the GST to get back, that means whatever GST he has paid, if he is not at consumer end, because most of the taxes are paid by consumer end, so if he is not at consumer end, he may ask to pay the tax from the next level. For example, if he has purchased the product from wholesale level, actually it goes from stages. So I'll start from the beginning. So let's take example of a factory. If any products comes from this factory and goes to a wholesale market, so this wholesale market will purchase the goods from this company and pay the tax, and this company will ask for return. That means it will file a GST return to government, and GST would be returned to him on cases. That means there are several slabs given as per the GST return. So this company gets the GST return. Now next person, he will sell his product to this person, or the third level. Now third level will purchase the product and pay taxes to him. Now after he is given paid taxes to this person can ask or file for GST return and get GST return. So that means GST is charged from consumer or the end person, or in some time at these level also, depending on the slabs. For example, if this person is not allowed to get a GST return up to 20 lakh transaction, so up to 20 lakh transaction he will not have to pay any GST, but above this he will pay GST. Similar is the case with consumer has to pay the tax. If we consider income tax, then there is a slab for paying income tax, and up to 5 lakh no tax, above 5 lakhs 10% or 5%, whatever the slabs may be. So it depends upon the filing of the tax, depending upon the slabs, how much money they are earning or how much money they are paying. So this is GST or GST return. So I'm not going in detail about the GST, how they are filed, how they are returned, how they are paid. You can see that in separate video. If you wish, I can make a separate video on GST. Although there are several videos already available on GST, you can see them and understand what GST it is and why it was brought into power. So this is all about central and state relation, and whatever the texts are required to be read, you can read from the website of pdfforexam.org. And I hope you have understood the central and state relation. and this ends up polity. There are many more topics which are not very important and very relevant. You can read, they will be posted regularly on the website. You can visit the website and read. So for next 2 days I won't be giving any videos on polity, and after that I'll be starting with video with geography. So see you in the next video. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.